I know that I speak for all of us when I say I'm really excited to be here and share some of my work with you guys. This jumps straight to a point because we skipped 3 slides, but we can stay here. One of the things that we've all been doing today is building social connections. And what happens when we interact with someone is that we have to keep track of 2 different things. First, our own minds and the minds of someone else. And half of this is easy. We have first-person access to our own thoughts and feelings. We have this immediate, rich experience of what it's like to be us. But for other people, we have a clunky assumption that there's a mind in there. And instead of knowing exactly what's in their heads, we have to infer those internal states from external cues like facial expressions or body language. And what's interesting about these is even though the goal is to understand their internal minds, the focus is on their external bodies. And me and my collaborators thought that possibly this asymmetry between having access to our own internal states, but only access to others' internal states via their external bodies, would shift our priorities if we asked people to choose what was more important, their bodies or their minds. Such that when we consider our own feelings, we think that our mind is more important than our body. But if we're asked to predict what other people think, we think they value their bodies over their minds. So to test this, my collaborators, Matt Jordan, Teresa Gaybird, and I, came up with a bunch of different experiences that could affect your mind or your body. We started with negative things. So one thing that could affect your mind is losing the ability to focus. One thing that could affect your body is losing your arm. And we had people say, how bad would these things be if they were to happen to you? We also had them predict how bad someone else would think these things were. And we asked them to tell us why. So people who thought it was bad to hurt the body said things like, they would opt for still being able to move around but losing their sense of self. Or people want to have a healthy body regardless of their mental state. People who thought minds were particularly important said things like, I think losing your mental ability is akin to losing your soul. That's a living death. Or mental diseases are much worse than physical ones because it changes your complete outlook on life. What's interesting about these responses is that they actually only came from 2 people, deciding why it would be really bad for their minds to get hurt, but really bad for somebody else's body to be hurt. And they're not just weirdos. This was reflected across their data. We found that people thought that their mental capacities were more valuable than their physical ones, but expected that others would feel oppositely. You might be thinking, this is just something weird. We don't like to see blood in other people. Pain's bad. So we also tested positive experiences where we found the same thing. People thought being more creative was more important than being physically fit, but they expected that other people cared more about having cardiovascular fitness than things like being able to understand new ideas rapidly. One thing you might be asking is, who is this magical other person? Maybe it's just some random person that they didn't care about, and you'd be right. We asked people about the average person. This person doesn't even have a body, but people seem to think their bodies are really important. But we also asked about an acquaintance and a close other. We had people give us the names of people that they said they felt emotionally close with, and they showed the bias in all cases. So we thought that perhaps what was going on was that this access to our own internal states made us feel like that was who we were, that that was central to our self-identity. But not having access to other people's internal states made us feel like the important part of their identity was their body. So to test this, we turned to something a little more technical, which were stick figures. And we're psychologists, so we gave them brains. And what we did was we had people tell us, here's the blue one, here's the green one, you're blue, you're green. Imagine you're in a science experiment and this happens. So your brain ends up in somebody's body, somebody's brain is in yours, and how much do you think these things are you? How much does someone think that they're them? What we found was the same thing we found in the other case. People valued their minds more than their bodies, but expected people to identify more with their bodies than their brains. We think that these could explain some interesting findings that happen in the real world. They're not just weird lab effects. So people treat mental health and physical health very differently. We seem to encourage people to have healthy bodies, but pay less attention to their minds. We award Purple Hearts for physical injuries, but not mental ones. And it's easy to teach kids not to punch each other in the face, but harder to say don't hurt someone's feelings. So in the workplace, we think that this has implications for what we give people time off for, how we decide to motivate them, and what sorts of projects we assign them to. Because our subjects were fairly confident. They said that they thought they got the answer right when they were predicting for other people. So to end, I just want to remind everyone to ask people what they value. Remind them that you care about their minds, which is what they care about in themselves.